This video is brought to you by Azam Sharp School, which is one of the biggest producers of iOS development videos. I mean, just check out this. 16 courses, more than 90 hours of videos, more than 90 hours of content, and it just keeps on increasing. So by the time you're watching these, it might be like 20 courses with 120 hours, all right? And now on Azam Sharp School, I do offer the annual membership, which is $249, and monthly membership, $25 a month. And what's great about these membership options is that once you sign up for these membership, you can access to all 16 courses and check out these amazing courses. Test-driven development in iOS, reactive programming combined, Swift Vapor, server-driven UI, Reality Kit, Swift Data Bootcamp. I mean, it just contains all the things that you need to become an amazing iOS developer. And I keep on adding more courses. So there are more courses that will be added later on. So this is an amazing deal. You can check out the testimonials from our existing students. And this is again one of the largest catalog for iOS development courses. So sign up for either a monthly membership or annual membership and enjoy all of these courses. Thank you so much. Let's go ahead and get back to the video. In this section, we'll be learning about re-implementing our dates application using the MVVM design pattern. We will look at creating a view using Swift UI. That view is going to ask the view model for the data. The view model is going to ask a HTTP client or a web service, and the web service is going to communicate with a web API on the cloud, which will be able to provide the data back as a DTO object or a model. Once the web service receives the model from the cloud, the web service is going to give the model back to our view model, where it would be converted to a view model, and then finally the view model is the one providing the data to the view to be displayed on the screen. Now let's go ahead and jump into the implementation details. The starter project is exactly the same as we have finished in getting started with Async and Await section. We still need to go and implement this using MVVM design pattern. All right, so I've already added this as a resource file you can download, or you can go back to the section getting started with Async and Await and download the last lecture. But I think it will be easier to just download it from here because it is attached as a resource with this particular lecture. So go ahead and download it, and then we can go and implement MVVM design pattern for our dates application. All right, so now let's go ahead and get started to convert our existing application that we implemented in the last section to MVVM design pattern. Now, if you already know MVVM design pattern, you can completely skip this whole section and jump on to the next. But for those who are interested in seeing, experimenting, that how MVVM design pattern is going to fit with this app, we can go ahead and continue. The first thing we need to do is we need to go ahead and add a web service. This will be our HTTP client that is going to make a network call to our glitch URL. I'm just going to call it web service. Let's go ahead and create a class. We will call it web service. And now we'll create a function. We'll call it get dates. This is going to return us something which will be of current date. Well, luckily we have already created that. It's going to be just one single date, so we're just going to call it current date. And maybe it can also be optional. We have already written this code in the getDate function, so perhaps we can simply copy it. There we go. Okay, this was good, and this function is actually done. Our next step would be to make sure that we're calling this function. Now, in order to call this function, and in order to conform to the MVVM design pattern, it would be a great idea to create your view models, and from the view models, you are going to call the web service. So in the next lecture, let's go ahead and move our focus to creating the view models associated with our app. All right, so now let's go ahead and add a view model. I'm going to go ahead and add a new file, and I will call my view model current date list view model. This will be the view model that will be representing everything that happens on the content view screen. We will call it current date list view model. This is also going to be observable object. Each current date which will be displayed on the screen will be represented by a structure called current date view model. The current date view model is going to work on the model called current date. Once you pass in the model, we can go ahead and expose properties so that we can access the date, which we can simply do by saying current date. We can also expose a property called ID, which is going to return a UUID coming from the actual model current date.id. Perfect. Next, we're going to go ahead and create an array of current dates, which will be of type current date view model. We're going to go ahead and create a function called get all dates. This function is going to call web service. Let's make sure that we create an instance. Interesting. Let's go ahead and check it out, what's going on. I'm going to go ahead and build the app. Go to web service. Oh, our function is actually private. Let's remove that. If it's private, it's not available to anyone outside. We actually do want to call web service. Web service.getDate. The getDate function is marked with async. You can't really call getDate without you being in the context of async. Well, we can accommodate that by simply making sure that we are in async. Well, now the problem is that the getDate function can also throw an error. So we will also go ahead and decorate it with throws. Now we can finally go ahead and await by calling the try block. And we're going to go ahead and wrap this print error. Perfect. This is going to return us one single current date model. So we'll say current date. This is the current date model. You can't really send this date to the view. In order to send this date to the view, you should somehow convert this into a current date view model. So how can we convert it into current date view model? Let's go ahead and say current date view model. That's what we want to convert it to, right? So we will go ahead and create an instance of current date view model. I'm going to pass in the current date that we have. The current date in this case is optional, so we have to make sure that we are passing in the correct one. We can go ahead and unwrap our current date. Current date. Now we know that the optional has been unwrapped, so we should be able to pass it. Perfect. This is going to create for us the current date. Make sure that you're using if let to unwrap. The other thing that we need to do is we need to add this current date view model to the current dates array. This can be done by saying current dates dot append and appending a current date view model. The current dates property is decorated with published. This means that whenever you are doing something, you're setting the property or you're adding or removing from it, make sure that you perform those operations on the main queue. This can be done by simply wrapping everything inside dispatch main async. Great. Now we need to use self because we are inside a closure. One of the things that was introduced in iOS 15 is something called actors. We will learn more about actors later on, but in order to set the current dates or append to the current dates array, and that has to be done on the main queue, on the main thread, instead of using dispatch main async, we can simply go ahead and mark our view model with main actor. Main actor simply means that all the properties and the functions inside the current date view model will be called on the main thread. This means that we don't really have to use a dispatch anymore because we know that it's going to be called on the main thread as indicated by the main actor property wrapper. Great. So hopefully this will allow us to get all the dates or get a date. Maybe we should call it get date or get current date, because in the end, it is getting us one date, but then it is also populating this. So let's go ahead and call it get all dates or populate all dates. Perfect. Naming functions can sometimes be very hard, right? Okay, so this will take care of our call and hopefully populating our current date view model or current dates array. Our next task is to make sure that we call populate dates from our view. Let's go ahead and check it out in the next lecture. All right, so now let's go ahead and see that how we can utilize our new current date list view model. I'm going to go back to content view. Inside the content view, I'm going to go ahead and create a state object. This state object will hold the instance of current date list view model, which I'm going to refer to as current date list view_m. Great. We don't really need get date function over here, so I'm just going to remove it for now. And we may not even need the populate dates. That's what the view model is for. Let's also go ahead and remove the state property. Now we can go and use current date list view model. Current date list view model dot current dates. Great. We no longer have populate dates function, but we do have current date list view model dot populate dates. So perhaps we can call that. We can use the same exact function when the page actually loads and the task modifier is fired. Let's make sure that we are doing everything to make this work. We're going to go ahead and try to add ID property. The reason that we're adding the ID property is that the current dates is an array of dates view model. Since our current date list view model, the populate dates, is an async function, we can go ahead and perform a try. Now, one thing you will note inside the task is this particular function is not really returning anything, it's just calling populate dates. Another thing to note over here is this error. Basically, this error is saying that we're trying to convert from a function of type something like that, which is empty, to async throws? Well, we shouldn't even be throwing from our populate dates function because we're catching it right there. Let's go back to our populate dates function and remove the throws. There's no reason for throws because we are inside a do catch. So we will catch it right inside the populate dates function. This means that we don't really need to use the try keyword. We can simply go ahead and remove it. Perfect. Now let's go ahead and give it a try. I'm going to go ahead and run the application and see if it behaves exactly like that or not. There we go. The first time whenever it launches, it usually does take a little bit of time, but hopefully for future launches, it will be a little bit faster. Okay, great. So now our app is loaded and we can see that it is displaying the current time. This means that our task modifier was firing correctly and we were able to fetch the current time from our web service, got the model, converted to a view model, and then displayed it on the screen. Let's go ahead and click on the refresh button. The refresh button is going to trigger another network call, and it's going to get the current time again from the web service. You can see that the current time is being updated and being appended. So now we have updated our app to use the MVVM design pattern. MVVM design pattern or any design pattern is going to help you when you're creating much larger applications. It will also be a good idea to move your current date model into a separate model file, which we can simply go ahead and add a new file and we can say current date. This will allow us to make sure that we are not polluting our content view. So in this section, you learned that how you can update your date listing app, which is using now the MVVM design pattern with async and await feature. And you also learned how to use the main actor property wrapper. We will cover actors later on in this course. Hope you have enjoyed this section.